I want to welcome you all. This is our, as I said earlier, our April Elevate webinar, and we are doing something a little bit different here. We have got two incredible cleaning professionals, folks who know what is happening every single day, and we're going to have a really honest conversation around what your cleaning partners, your cleaners, the people who are doing a lot of the really hard work in those properties want vacation rental managers to know. So, it's going to be a little bit of a different perspective than we've had in the past. But again, folks, this is a recorded webinar, meaning that if you have to jump off and take a call, or if you want to share this with someone after the fact, you will have the ability to do so. We'll send the recording out. Also, chat is open, Q&A is open. We have a bunch of questions that we're going to go through, but we will also try to get to as many of them as we can that you all have, because this webinar is for you. So without further ado, I am Corinne Oki. I'm the VP of Community and Engagement here at Breezeway, and I get the honor of creating these webinars every month and hosting them. But I'm not the one you want to hear from. You want to hear from these two gentlemen that are here with me. And so I'm going to turn it over, Jonathan, to you, and see if you can do tell everybody about who you are.
Yes. Well, thanks for having me, Corinne. It is great to be on another Elevate today. Well and Good is a servicing company specifically created for vacation rentals. I founded it 6 years ago now, and the goal was to truly standardize this very fragmented process of the vacation rental turnover by combining the process of cleaning, the linens and laundry, and all guest essentials. We do that under one roof. So Well and Good supplies all of those items, and we do that in 18 locations now across the country, where we have physical spaces that store all the products, and then cleaning teams that are trained and compensated by us come to those facilities, get what they need, and go complete the turnover process. So that's Well and Good, and happy to be here.
Incredible. So some of these comments about frustrations around linens and consumables, we're gonna be able to touch on that for sure. Logan.
Hey everybody, I'm excited to be here as well. I own a cleaning company in Arkansas. We specialize in Airbnbs. And then I also write a newsletter. It's called Same Day Turn. And we've got 9,500 cleaners, Airbnb cleaners, that subscribe to the newsletter. So I am very passionate about Airbnb cleaning. And so I'm excited to chat with y'all today. Corinne, you're on mute.
Yeah. Listen, it has been a day already, and it's only 2 o'clock. All right. Well, all I was saying was I was going to go ahead and stop the share so that we can see these gentlemen as we're answering these questions. And I kind of want to just sort of start really high level. And actually, while we start asking these, I'm just realizing I have a poll that we want to run, because we want to understand a little bit more who is on the call. So take a second and complete this poll, and then we'll jump into the questions. So we want to understand a little bit more about your role in the organization that you're with, and kind of the mindset that you're coming to this webinar from today, right? Are you in a property management role, or are you in a cleaner role, whether that's in-house or contract? So we'll give it just a second here for folks to answer. So we have a lot more folks coming in right now. We have a bunch of people who haven't responded, but the majority of those who have responded right now are coming in from a property manager company.
Awesome.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and end that. And then kind of go from there. Okay. We've got Logan back. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, this is what the work that you guys are doing on a daily basis, whether it's you personally or the folks on your team. And so I think, when you think about what a typical busy season, a typical busy day looks like for your team, give me the high level.
Logan,
Either one of you can take that.
I'll take that. Yeah, so for us, busy season in Arkansas, I mean, we're in SEC country. So University of Arkansas, when we've got football season, I mean, it is all hands on deck. In our small little town, we've done as many as 38 cleans in one day. So for us, it's just it is everybody's focused, everybody's engaged. The thing that I want to stress on this call is cleaners and hosts are on the same team. Like we're on the same team. We're both trying to provide a 5-star guest experience. So we do everything in our power during those busy seasons to bring the best, right? Bring the best. Spring break for us here in Arkansas is another one where we're amped up and we're ready to go. So it's very chaotic, right? As if you're a host, right, you might only have one or two properties, right? For cleaning companies, we have 50, 60, 70. I mean, Jonathan probably has several more properties than that we're just trying to coordinate everything. So it is chaotic, but it's really exciting.
Yeah, every year we look at our values as the company, Well and Good, and we tweak some of our core values. This year we added a new core value, and it is that we flex. That is literally the core value within our company because we realize that this industry has moments where you have to literally flex the muscles that you have been working out. And when you think about any sort of a flexing, it's like you have to do a lot of reps prior to that. You have to be, doing all the prep work to be able to have that moment where you show off what you're made of and you show off what you can do. And so this industry has a lot of that. And so we instituted even as a value to be able to kind of like be like, yes, we're gonna show you. We're gonna show you what we are capable of in those moments where the bullets are flying, where the spring break is happening, or games are going on, all the guests are expecting it to happen. That's the moments we flex.
Well, and I think what that flex looks like at different times probably varies slightly, but I
Yep.
think in all of those scenarios, right, you are committed to providing the most the best guest ready property
Mhm.
for the companies that you work with. And so, I'd love, Jonathan, maybe to have you dig into a little more about like how you guys define guest ready. Like, what does that mean for a well and good service property? And does that change when it's peak season and turns are tight?
Yeah, guest readiness is one of my favorite terms in the industry. I think that it's everything. It's the individual that's leaving that home and saying, okay, the next person that can come in here is a guest, right? And that is that moment of guest readiness. So whoever it is that is indicated guest readiness, oftentimes it's a well and good professional on our side. We look at three core aspects of the home to determine if it is guest ready. We first say, is the home serviced? And serviced means, in essence, cleaned, right? Have we serviced each area from the cleanliness, disinfecting, all the basic things you'd expect? But that's not everything. It's not just a clean home. To us, a clean home is not simply guest ready. We have to also have it be not just serviced, but stocked. And the stocked aspect is important. This is where all the linens are fully laundered and ready for the guest, including the right amount of towels, etc., new bath mats, all the things that are a stocked homes, not just the linens, but the guest essentials, things like your paper products. How many times do vacation rentals not have toilet paper? And it's just an insane thing that guests are, expecting this hotel level service and they're not getting it. So the home has to be serviced, it has to be stocked, and then it also has to be safe. And the safety aspects are, are there any strange odors in the home? Are there things that are obvious safety concerns from the furnishings that is broken? Anything along that line? We ask these questions of each of our professionals before we determine guest readiness, and we have a guest readiness test that happens regardless, right? And one of the things is this is no matter of season. I think that the concept of like, well, it's different during busy season than not, that's a dangerous slope to go down. In fact, I think during busy seasons when you have to, rely on your processes even more. And so, yes, the service to the stocked and the safe are all checklists that our teams go through on every work order every single time, and then they have that guest readiness test at the end, a yes or no question to determine that important aspect.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting. Um, well, first of all, what you just said about like, is it different during busy season versus non-busy season? It's kind of like that same mindset of like, I do this when it's an owner, and I do this when it's a guest, right? And the reality is that it should be the same regardless. And there are probably nuances around like, well, I'm changing the sheets for an owner to come in, or depending on different sheets or whatever the case may be. But busy season versus non versus owner versus guest, like the end of the day, every property should be tip top shape when we're welcoming the next person into that. You guys, one of the things that came up when we said, what's one of your frustrations? I saw it a couple of times in there, right? When, and Jonathan, you just also talked slightly about it as well around like supply management. And so, from a cleaner perspective, and I think it might be different. I didn't prep this question, so I'm not sure, but I think Jonathan, are you guys are supplying the supplies for your partners? And Logan, is that the same for you all, or are you taking supplies from you both are doing that. All right. So my question was going to be, so this might not, but you guys are pros, so you can answer it. Is like, when is when the supplies are low, right? What are some of the best tools and tips and tricks that a property manager can share with their cleaning professionals around when items are needed?
That's a great question. I'll take this one first, and I know that Jonathan has a full. That's part of his whole business is running that as well. For us, it's really key that our cleaners inform us as soon as possible, right? As soon as possible that the supply is getting low, and then we have the benefit of living in Bentonville, Arkansas, which happens to be the headquarters of Walmart. We can get a Walmart delivery to these properties in 30 minutes, which is just absolutely incredible. So if there was a longer term stay and they run out of supplies completely and there's not enough for that next turnover, for us, it's a 30-minute order and we can get supplies delivered. Obviously, we never want to wait that long, right? We always want to make sure that we've got enough in stock for at least the next 2, 3 stays, right? And so as the cleaners are going through the supply closet through Breezeway, we have a link that they can kind of fill out to say, hey, we're running low on toilet paper at this property. And then our team will go ahead and we'll purchase those supplies and schedule the delivery for the next turnover, right? The other thing that I love about, not to plug Walmart delivery, but you can schedule the delivery time, right? That's the difference with Amazon. Amazon, you can't schedule the time. With Walmart, you can schedule the time. So I know my cleaners are going to be there in 2 days at 10 o'clock. So schedule the delivery for 10 o'clock on this Wednesday, whatever. And so that's how we run it. I know that Jonathan's is probably way more sophisticated, but for our aspect in this our small little town, that's exactly how we run it.
Yeah, and I think, just to piggyback on that a bit, what our company supplies is all the essentials, like the every turn essentials, paper products, soaps, the sponges or dishwasher pods. There are still some things that are not supplied by us on a regular turn, right? So this is where the coffee machine broke, right? We need a new coffee
Right.
machine. And those are great times to have a depot, right? You've got a great system going there with you've got Walmart down the street. I love that. But with us, we will typically have those things be either sourced by our teams to our actual location because delivering to homes can get complicated. I love that you're plugging Walmart because you think about other ones like Amazon. It's really tough. They're showing up at all hours of the day. Yeah, if you can schedule something like that, is great. Or we have a depot that then we can do a drop off when the time is right for that guest, not to interrupt.
And what do you guys think? Well, listen. I will always plug the Walmart delivery on a personal level. I rely on that. I don't even know how many
Yeah.
times I go into stores anymore. I mean, that's making me a little lazy, but I think yeah, it's
Yeah.
great to be able to easily get that stuff quickly when you need it. What do you think, Logan? If you think about what separates a manager that you or a host, right, that you love working with, from one that you'd walk away from, what is one of those distinguishing qualities?
Oh wow. I don't know that you wanted to ask me that question, Corinne. Look, all hosts are great. I love all hosts. There are favorite hosts though, right? Like I have favorite hosts and I have hosts that are a little bit more difficult to deal with. I think if maybe one thing that I could help a host understand is oftentimes these cleaners are not just cleaning your property, right? They might be cleaning on that same day. They might be cleaning 2 or 3 other properties on that exact same day. And so one of the things that, will really bother me as an owner is if the house is perfectly clean, our cleaning team has done a perfect job cleaning it, but there are small little things that are just not in the right place, right? So for example, we were cleaning these beautiful townhomes, and I got an email from the host one time, and it said, "Hey, just want to let you know, like the house is it's beautiful, it's perfect, it's clean, very happy with this turnover, but I have concerns about the placement of some items." And so she had mentioned, well, the phone charger is supposed to be in the second drawer, not the third drawer. and this hand mirror is in the upstairs bathroom. It's supposed to be in the downstairs bathroom. And it's like, oh, I totally get that as a host. Like, you want your place to be exactly where it needs to be. Cleaners don't document the exact location of the 100+ items in the house, right? And so cleaners will place things where they think makes sense. And if you have these like little small detailed intricacies about, hey, the broom is supposed to be on this side of the closet, not this side of the closet, I would just ask you that, you rethink, is that really that important, right? Is the guest experience going to be changed at all by the exact location of the broom, right? And so I'm toning that down for you, Corinne, and for the audience, but that's really something that bothers us as a cleaning team is, hey, the guest experience is there 100%. We might not nail every single, nitpicky item, but we're doing our absolute best.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
If I could, I would add in there. I think, to your point, Logan, that somebody who is incredibly picky is tough to deal with if they are also cheap. I think the issue is you cannot be both picky and cheap. And so we have folks that ask us to do all kinds of things. And I say all the time, I'm like, our teams will literally, walk on our hands, or we'll do all these crazy things if you pay us for it. We'll drive our cars in reverse if you pay us for it. We'll do whatever you want, but you got to pay us for it. And so, man, we instituted a whole setup for, we have what we call checklist A. Checklist A are the things that we do every single time for every single home, right? This covers the basics of service, stocked, safe. We know the home is there. And then we have a separate work order for any customizations that the customer wants, right? So the owner or the manager, they want to see that broom in the second thing. No worries. We're going to have that as a separate one. And every one of those items has a dollar amount next to it. And so it's like, I know you might want to see the broom, but do you actually want to see the broom? Like, are you willing to have this be something that is a defined, clear, distinct objective that we are going to now have a compensation? In order to have compensation, we're of course going to now have documentation of that. We're going to have all these things. And so, to me, if an individual that is the host or the owner or the manager wants to throw on a million aspects of it, I don't really care if they are willing to line itemize each one of those and make sure that there's a compensation reflected to it.
Yeah, Jonathan, and Corinne, maybe I'll just jump ahead to the other question that we were talking about earlier is, what's the quickest way for a host to burn out a cleaner?
Yeah,
It's exactly that. It's
that's right.
adding lots of little things and not acknowledging or compensating, right? So
That's right.
with our cleaning company, we say, okay, this is our checklist A, right? Like,
Mhm.
these are the things that we do for every single property, and we allow our hosts to give us 10 additional things at no charge.
Love it.
So
Yep,
we say,
same. I
okay,
love it.
we know that every property is unique. We know that you really care about this, this office, right? Whatever. So we'll let you give us 10 extra things at no charge. It could be, it could be like, water this plant, right? Because not all properties have plants, and so it could be
Mhm.
water this plant. It could be, I want you to double check that this vase is in this exact same place. We have a property that we clean, and they have a $300 vase in the middle of their coffee table. And I'm like, I don't really know why you would put a $300 vase there, but that's your choice. So like, they have a checklist to like make sure the vase is there every single time. Anyway, but the fastest way for a host to burn out a cleaner is by adding little stuff every single time and not really acknowledging that it is pretty inconvenient for that cleaner.
And the work that as Jonathan said earlier, right, the work that the cleaner is doing to actually execute on those things. I think that also goes to, at some point, right, like recognizing that as a property manager, listen, I get it, right? I talk to property managers every day as well, right? As a property manager, when something doesn't go wrong, it comes back to them from the guest, right? The guest is coming back to them. They're not coming, Logan, to you and saying, hey, this was wrong. So they do have a brand to uphold. But I think in some ways it's also about trusting that I have hired a professional who is very good at their job and is best intentioned, right? As you said earlier, Logan, we're on the same team. And so I need to know that we've set the right expectations, that we're all aligned on what the outcome looks like. And I need to just sort of sit back a little bit and trust that process until there's a reason not to. I think we know that there are, and maybe that's, maybe as I said earlier, right, that difference between an owner stay versus a guest stay, right? Probably some of those things mean a little more when it's an owner arrival. Maybe that owner that wants the cord in a specific drawer, right? The guest doesn't care if it's drawer 2 or drawer 3, but the owner will. And so, in some capacity, there is that balance, but it's also about how do I just trust that I've enlisted a professional who knows what they're doing. And I think that's a big piece. What is it? I think it might be the ladies from Thanks for Visiting. I know they say trust but verify. Right. So that's a good mantra to live by. Speaking of, Jonathan, you talked a little bit about checklists earlier, and Logan, you also kind of mentioned that as well. But what does a great checklist look like, and how often do you think that managers should be revisiting that with their cleaners, or do you think that should come from the cleaners and then have the manager input?
I
It's a
mean,
wild card question I'm just throwing out there.
it depends. Like if you're hiring a professional operation, Logan and I are both serious about our business. We work with multiple operators, and I do believe that the best route is to have a standardized system that is the checklist A that we mentioned. I
Yeah.
love what Logan said about having a couple of customizations. We allow the same thing up to a certain threshold of customizations on top of that standard checklist A. And then beyond that, it can go into a separate work order. And maybe that separate work order is done on a frequency that is different than every turnover, right? If you're wanting to check random things on an occasional basis, maybe that separate work order is also done by an inspector and not the cleaning professional, because that's sometimes an aspect too, is that, we want the cleaning professionals to be coming in and focusing on the task at hand, which is the actual service, stocked and safety of the home. And so if they're doing that, it sometimes is beneficial. And we see this too, where if there's 35 customizations, which happens, and rightfully so, right? If no one else is going to be coming in to the home
Yeah.
besides us, and the next one is going to be the guest, I understand that people might want us to check the temperature of the hot tub, and they might want us to check to make sure that the backyard gate is latched a certain way. All that stuff is great. But if there's 35 of them, sometimes we'll look and say it's better for us to send an individual that is separate from the cleaning professional to allow that cleaning pro to focus on their task at hand, and then continue to come in. But to me, the best checklists come from, the professionals who are doing the work typically have a good idea of what needs to be done to get the home guest ready from a broad basis. When we get into the focusing, it's like work together, figure out what that needs to be, and should it be a separate work order?
I love
I
that.
mean,
Corinne, I want to get your chat going. I mean, we have mostly hosts on here. Are you guys okay with what Jonathan and I are saying, or is this running contrary to everything that you think
ooh,
from being a host? I just want to get some feedback from your audience here.
I love that. All right, people. Logan has asked. Let's see. There is a question that somebody just put in here about how do you figure out that customized task fee if you're paying hourly?
I'd still have it be a separate work order. I would still have it be a separate work order first. And that way it's just strictly from a focus perspective, because your compensation may not shift at that point, but your focus perspective can. So thinking of them closing out the first work order, I'm now done with my standard aspects of it. And now I get to do these other things. So almost you take your cleaning professional hat off and you put your inspector or your property manager hat on, and you say, okay, now I'm looking broader at these other aspects. I don't think you would separate the compensation of that. They're on the clock regardless at that point, but you would be able to monitor, for instance, how long it took, because there'd be one closed out work order, and then you'd have another opened work order that comes after that. So I would definitely recommend the separation just for your internal tracking of how long and how much it's actually costing you.
I think this is seems to be resonating with everybody. Everybody in the room here today. I think listen, guys, sometimes a clean is just it's just not it's not gonna something's gonna get missed. Somebody's having an off day, whatever it may be. How do you share that feedback with a cleaner without damaging the reputation, or not the reputation, the relationship? What is the best way to kind of communicate that? What have you guys found in the interactions that you have with your clients?
The question is, when a cleaner misses something, how do you give that
When
feedback?
a cleaner clean doesn't go. Yeah, when you
Yeah.
need to give that feedback, right? What is the way that resonates best, that seems to work well, that value, that shows the value that you put on the relationship, but it still allows you to have that open line of dialogue.
Yeah, so I tell my team almost every day, like, look, no clean is perfect. There has never been a single perfect clean, and there will never be a single perfect clean because it is impossible to clean an entire house to perfection in 4 hours. It's just not going to happen, right? That said, if we are 99% of the way there, like, we should be really proud of ourselves, and stuff is going to get missed, but we need to make sure that we're communicating, that we are taking note of what was missed and making sure that doesn't happen again, right? So for example, I mean, just for example, we've had a cleaner that she forgets to empty the little K pod, the Keurig thing, with open it up and you see the pods there, it's used, right? Not a big deal, right? Like, it's not a big deal. It is something that a guest would be like, oh, that's a little, like, I didn't want to see that. I don't want to know that there have been other guests at this property, right?
Yeah.
And so that clean could have been perfect except for that one thing, right? And so my feedback to that cleaner is like, look, hey, I love how you staged the beds. I love how you restocked this. I love how you did all this stuff. I did notice that this small thing was missed. Could you please just make a note next time to not forget that one thing? And you're not damaging their relationship. You're making sure that they feel valued and appreciated, but also you're helping them understand, like, I am concerned about this one specific thing, right? So that's a great way that we love on our cleaners, right? Like, we do cleaner of the month awards, we do before and after picture like wins, like, we do huge shout outs in our Slack channel all the time. As long as they feel loved and they feel appreciated, you can give them feedback, right? Now, if you're only ever giving them feedback and it's only ever negative feedback, they're not going to stay with you for very long. So
Right.
I mean, we're all human, right? So talk to them like you would want to be talked to.
And we talk about this question aimed largely at property managers and such about how can you give feedback without damaging the reputation, or without damaging the relationship. I look at this from the perspective of we have to understand that the guest relationship is held by the property manager or the host, right? That is the guest relationship. The decisions that are made between that relationship are not the exact same decisions that are needing to be made from the cleaning professional relationship and the manager. Those are two separate relationships. So let's just say that you have an issue. The guest reports an issue at the home. There's some hairs on the bed or there's something like that. What we have commonly done in our industry, and it's hurt everyone, has been we just simply refund the entire cleaning fee to the guest, right? And then we go to the cleaning professional and say, "You're not getting paid for this job. I'm now cutting your entire pay. You did 99% of the work, but that one thing." And we have to stop and say, hold on a second. If you, as a manager, decide that you want to refund or you want to do whatever decision that you want to make that right between you and your guest is a decision between you and your guest. And then you go to your team and you give that aspect of feedback. And maybe it does have some sort of a financial consequence to it as well. But those are not equally, and they should not be treated as equal. Imagine your employee. If it's actually illegal to do it with an employee, right? To tell your employee that they didn't get paid for that job if they maybe didn't make a good move. But we just feel like because it's an independent contractor, we can yank away the pay entirely for those situations. And if you want to damage the relationship, do the old, we're going to refund the cleaning fee route. And you'll find it's hard to find cleaning professionals at that point, right? There's no one you can gain those relationships with because you're looking at something that is a guest facing relationship and you're trying to correlate that to the distinct relationship you have with your partner. And I would advise folks to really understand there's a difference there. And you are there to serve the guest. You have a partnership with your operator. And yes, you need to get into the details and you need to get into what caused the issues and you need to make it right. And you need to even have maybe the financials be a part of it, but not equal according to whatever you do with your guest.
Well,
John?
first of all, Jamie said it best in the chat. Jamie said, "Preach, Jonathan." But I
Yeah.
think that is a very valid you know, conversation to be having, because I think, as you were saying that, I was thinking we do that today in this industry with our guests and our owners, right? Just because someone says the bed wasn't comfortable, I'm not refunding your stay for that room.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think like there's part of that mindset around what do I decide? What am I going to have this conversation with the guest and have this conversation with the cleaner? I think that is a really brilliant um, sort of perspective to look at it from. And I think, I'm curious, as we start to think about that, there's, one of the questions that I had on here for you guys was like, what is something that a property manager thinks is super important and it might matter a lot, but maybe it isn't likely something that's going to be the guess. And on the converse side of that, what's something that they're not valuing that actually has high impact?
This almost piggybacks exactly to what I was saying. I think something that they think that matters, that don't, what a property manager thinks matters to us that really doesn't matter a lot, the revenue of the booking. You all are tied to the revenue of the booking. You all are getting a benefit because it's a $5,000 per night stay. Are we getting anything different? Because we're getting paid the exact same amount. There's this pressure cooker that managers will put us in because it's a super high revenue booking. Now, here's the thing. There are ways to incentivize folks during that high revenue process.
Yeah.
It's called a VIP work order. Have a separate task and template, have a separate payout. Maybe take the rate that is the normal 1.0 rate and make it a 1.25 rate, 25% increase for that because you're getting $5,000 a night, right? But you think it matters so much to us. And I said I was going to get punchy, but like they think it matters so much. And the owner's coming, okay, what does that actually mean for us as the cleaning professional? Because we want to help your business, right? We do. We understand that that's a benefit, but unless there is some sort of an actual transactional nature of this, it is something that doesn't really matter. It should not, right? It should not matter to us whether there is a $5,000 booking or a $200 booking. We are there to do our job regardless, unless you want to bring in a separate type of work order, have a separate set of requirements, and compensate additionally for that. That's where it's like, there's ways to incentivize, there's ways to motivate, but just telling us the pressure of like, guys, this is a really important booking. Okay, like what are we supposed to do differently? So that would be one that I would say that people underestimate. I'm sorry, that people that think that matters don't. Something that they underestimate. Or actually, Logan, do you have anything else you wanted to add to that
I
one
see
before?
Logan smiling. He has
Yeah, go ahead.
something to add for sure. Or
I'm
he's
gonna
saying
let
you're saying exactly what I'm thinking. Either way.
I'm gonna let Jonathan cook. I mean, I don't need to say anything. I'm just gonna let him keep ripping. I don't have
Yeah.
anything. I don't have anything to add.
It's a totally different direction on the underestimate thing. Something that property managers underestimate is a different direction. But I just think oftentimes property managers underestimate how many corners they are actually asking the cleaners to cut in order to get the job done, right? By either it's the way that they're compensating the team, or a great example is laundry, right? You want to be able to have the home with 10 beds turned within a certain amount of time with the one single washing machine and dryer. And it's like you're asking folks to do rinse and spins and quick washes. Like you underestimate how much you are asking people to cut corners. And I wish that people didn't do that as often as they did, because it's like we would love to be able to have the right amount of time or process to be able to do the job. And I just think that if we were to go in and like this, it's always the classic, like, how about we do this the way that you want it to be done? And now we show you how long that would actually take, right? And now all of a sudden you'd realize you're not actually asking us to do that. You're asking us to do a micro version of that to be able to just get it done and make it happen. And that's a tough spot for folks to be in, because then they have to make this entirely difficult decision of, do I do it the way that I'm technically being asked to do it, or do I cut the corners, which is really the only way to get it done? And so I think that folks underestimate that aspect.
Well, and I also think like knowing that if there is then an issue, it comes back. It's coming back
Yeah,
to me. So if I'm cutting corners from a time perspective,
you're
it
put in
might
a
come back to
terrible
bite me
position.
after. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's really all right, Logan. I know you want to add something in there.
Gosh, Jonathan's just, I can just see these hosts just like fuming behind the screen, like just like so angry at some
Well,
of these, but like the cleaning. So here's what I'll say. I think there's a question on here, Corinne. Maybe it's the last one. If guests, and I would say if owners, if hosts could see what goes into a great turnover, what do you think would surprise them the most?
hmm.
I love that
Uh-huh.
question, because to get the property, so our job as cleaners, and I say this to all my team, our job as cleaners is to make the property look like no one has ever stayed there before.
Right.
Like that is our job. When a guest walks in, that guest wants to feel like they are the only guest that have ever
Hmm.
stayed there. That this property is brand new, right? For us to do that, it takes way longer and is way more expensive than you want to believe, right?
Yeah.
Because it is so detailed. We have to touch every single part of that house, right? We have to open every drawer, open every cabinet. Like we literally touch everything. And unfortunately, it's just the challenge of this industry, right? That's just the expectations that we have in this industry. And so if I could just say one thing to a host, I would say like, look, the cleaners have a really, really tough job. Like, let's make sure that number one, that we're appreciating them, and that number two, we have grace when things don't go 100% of the way there, because that cleaner was there for 6 hours and just barely got it done in time right before the guest showed up. So that's all I would say. I think Jonathan's right on a lot of those points. The one thing that I think really is interesting is when a host allows for a late checkout or an early check-in on a same day turn. And so my feedback to that host is always, okay, you can let the guests check in earlier, or you can have a clean house. Which would you want? Like, do you want a dirty house or do you want a clean house? Because if you want a clean house, they can't have an early check-in. It's a same day turn. And so like, look, as a host wants to give everything they can to the guest, and I totally get that because I've been a guest and I've asked for certain exceptions to the rules. But they have to understand that there, like Jonathan said, there are compromises, right? If you accept a late checkout or an early check-in on a same day turn, the cleaners literally have to cut corners to make it happen. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to be okay with a little, so compromise. There's compromise to everything.
Maybe to touch on that too, the reality is oftentimes host and managers are using late checkouts and early check-ins as a revenue source. And so, if you were to ask the guest, what's that revenue source going towards? They would say it's probably to make sure the cleaner has enough time or to move that around. Nope. Usually it just goes in the manager's pockets, right? Now, wouldn't it be nice if it was a conversation being had about, hey, maybe it's not all of the money that you're gathering for that early check-in, but maybe some of it, so we actually could send another team or we could send more professionals and do something to that nature. If you're getting compensated for it, maybe at least share, not all of it, but share some of that would be actually a way to get that done. I saw Melissa asked about the about how we do the owners. The owner stay, right? When owners always wanted to be discounted for their stays versus not. And I would just say there, what we do is we say we are happy to discount the service upon arrival. We keep everything the same until we arrive. So we assume that it's going to be a full service. If we are going into an owner stay, we do ask our teams to assess the property when we get there. If it's truly going to be a lighter lift, if there's truly a lot less to be done, then we compensate down, but we try to start that at the actual normal rate for an owner, just because it's like you said, there still needs to be a full service there the majority of times.
Well, I'd say conversely then, or maybe, and they said along the same lines, but like, what about when a clean takes more than what's expected, right? So this person is saying they don't adjust cleans like you were just explaining when it takes less time. But so when do you add compensation when it takes more time? The argument could be made, right, that it oftentimes balances out. But in Jonathan, in your case, if you're actually reducing costs in specific.
Yeah, for owners, we'll reduce costs. I'll be honest, we very rarely increase. We very rarely increase. We know that sometimes homes are going to be heavily used. The times that we would actually increase would be if there is direct misuse of the property. So like excessive use, we don't increase for. Sometimes people are going to leave their trash out and they're going to do that. We try to take all that in stride. When there's misuse of the property is when there's something that we feel that there needs to be a claim, instituted. But any of those little ticky tack things, we try to avoid those as much as possible, to be honest.
Yeah, I
Now
will.
we
I
might
will.
compensate our cleaners and more. We might pay our cleaners more without going to our customers. Sorry, Logan, I cut you off.
Yeah, I would say that we eat a lot of that, right? Like we really
No,
do.
that's right.
Just for example, just how we as cleaners don't want you guys to be ticky tacky with us, we
Hmm.
don't want to be ticky tacky with you, right?
Amen. That's
So,
right.
so I would say like the only times that we will increase the cleaning fee is if like frankly they let the pets sleep in the bed, and like we now have to lint roll every single sheet like 3 4 times, and it
Hmm.
just adds a ton of time. There's dog hair on the blinds, there's dog hair on the windowsills, like there's dog hair everywhere. Like that's an instance where we would charge a pet fee. The other thing is parties, right? Like this was pretty self-explanatory. Floors are really sticky. I can't tell you how many times we've had blood and vomit, right? Like in the property. I mean, this is nothing new to anybody here, but anytime when, like Jonathan said, there's misuse at the property, then that is going to trigger an increased cleaning fee. But we're reasonable, right? Like we know that you as a host, you've got a P&L too. Like you're trying to manage a business as well. And so we get that. As the cleaning owner, we do eat a lot of it that you don't see because we want to make sure that our cleaners are taken care of. So like I said at the very, very beginning, we're on the same team, right? Like we both have the same goal, and that goal is a 5-star guest experience. So yeah, I'll just leave that at that.
Well, and I think, I'm laughing because a few minutes ago, right, we were saying, gosh, there's going to be some frustrated people as they're hearing some of this. But I think what I want to reiterate is that whether you're hearing it here in this webinar or you're not hearing it, the conversations are happening, right? And so I think that as an industry, we are all better off knowing what each participant in the conversation is feeling, and the frustrations, and like being a imagine being able to come to this webinar, hear something from one of you, and then go back and have a conversation with someone that they work with and say, you know what, I never really thought of it from that perspective. Imagine the relationship and the impact that that could have on how you work together in the future, because there are a lot of incredibly strong manager cleaner
Yeah.
relationships. And I think, one thing that we've talked a lot about, maybe things that don't go right, but I'd love to sort of hear from both of you about what it really feels like to work with someone when that equality and trust and that value is even, and sort of how you see that.
Yeah, I mean, just, from Well and Good's perspective, we work with hundreds of property managers that are awesome. And like there
Yeah.
are so many amazing partners out there who are, in line with the win-win nature of this industry. There can be wins on all sides. And I think it does start with that when there's a fundamental understanding, and this is oftentimes felt more than it's said, because you could say it, but you really need to feel it from the other party. But if there's a fundamental, I want you to be successful, and both sides can say that, it matters. And we have partners like that. We have partners who know that Well and Good wants them to be successful. Like we want our customers to be, and they are. We have 4.9 level ratings across 1,000+ homes. Our operators are the best operators in the country. But they also want us to be successful. Like they actually care and want us to thrive. They want us to be in business, right? Like this nature of just burning through cleaners, and then they have no resources, no money, and then all of a sudden, what do you got to do? You got to go find new ones. And like the long game approach of great partnerships are out there, and it's those that are just looking and saying, I want that to be the case. And Logan mentioned it so much about the book ending when there are challenges, right? When there's something that's not going right, the folks that come to us to say, hey, listen, things are going, we got 99% of it, crushing. What we need to work on is this 1%. I think, to the negative side, the folks that are like, they're almost scared to give the 99% because they think it's going to make us lazy or something. No, you tell us we're doing the 99%, and then that 1%, we will work hard to get that 1% because we're hearing it. We're hearing we're close. We're right there. There's always something to improve, and there forever is, right? But the aspect of like of the partnership and saying like, I want you guys to be successful, you want us to be successful, to me, that's what makes just completely synergistic relationships. And we have so many of them. I could name them, but like go look at our customer base and you'll see the best operators out there. They're giving a great guest experience because they actually care about their partnerships on the ground level.
um well, I'm gonna end with that question, but I want to see from you both, if there's one thing that we could, most of the folks on this call are property managers or non cleaners. So if there's one thing that every partner or every potential partner could think about, uh and think about how they may change a behavior or do something differently, is there one thing that each of you would say kind of stands out as like, this would make a big difference?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, I think I've hit on it a few times on the call, but like really understand that we're on the same team. Like I really think that's it. Like the cleaners are not intentionally missing stuff, right? The cleaners are not intentionally showing up late, or they're not intentionally doing things that, to you it might seem like, oh, well, why are they doing this? And don't they know, XYZ? A lot of times honest mistakes happen. Cleaners want your grace, and cleaners want your appreciation. Cleaners are human, right? Cleaners are 100% human. My favorite hosts are the ones that, we've had hosts that buy our cleaners Christmas gifts because they understand it's the cleaner that is making that property a 5-star property. The staging is great, the guest communication is important, but the cleaning truly is the most important part of that whole stay. In my opinion, I own a cleaning company, so I'm biased, but the cleaning is really the most important part of that stay. And so the hosts that truly appreciate the cleaners and can say, hey, look, I know that you missed this one thing. That's okay. Get it next time. Like, I think you're amazing, and just really appreciate the cleaners. That's all we ask for, right? And just understand that those cleaners are really working their tails off. So that's what I would say. Like, we're partners. We have the same goal. We make money when you make money, right? So we're never going to intentionally miss stuff. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I love that. I so agree. I would say yes to that. And also, to what Diana said about knowing what it's like, get out there and do a cleaning. I would just say maybe to add to that, put your face in front of the faces of the people that are doing the work. Try to do that as often as you can. Like literally your face, your physical face in front of the people that are doing the work, whether or not you're having a long conversation or not, but acknowledgement in the field, get out there. Like get out there and see what's going on and get in the trenches. And we shy away from that sometimes. And I think that that's a big benefit. And then lastly, I would just say have a long game approach. Like take a long game approach with your business, take a long game approach with your partnerships. I know everything lives and dies off of this next reservation. We're always this reservation, this day, and all that. But like, we have to try to, say, now we're hoping to be in this for a while and we're hoping to we know there's going to be some bumps. There's also going to be a lot of smooth days and there's going to be a lot of great things. Let's take that long game approach. And when we do, we'll zoom out and say, dang, we're crushing it. And we're actually doing a great job. We're providing a fantastic guest experience. There are wins being had by the guests, by the managers, by the servicers. That can happen with a long game approach.
I love that. The long game approach and respect for one another and being on the same team.
Yeah.
Any other questions from folks in the audience? Do we get some things we can think about implementing with our cleaners or our cleaning partners?
I'm going to scroll. I think we might have missed some
Oh,
questions.
did we miss any? Okay, let me see. I
Let's
thought
see.
we were answering most of them. Let's see.
Curious what customization means to all of us. Dylan asked about charging for special staging at the properties. I would say first separate it into a different work order and then assess whether there should be a charge. Use Logan's, or we have the same thing, which is a threshold of customizations, right? So allow up to 10 is a great number. I believe ours is similar to that number as well. We allow a certain number of customizations, whatever they want, and then we assess it from there on a separate work order. So pretty much anything that's not on your standard checklist.
Is there any brave host out there who is not afraid to disagree with us? Is anybody out there
No.
that's willing to put in the chat that they disagreed with something? I know that Corinne's trying to end this, so I might have just started.
Listen,
But
let's
I
go.
really want to
Let's
know.
do it.
Yeah.
People want to stay on, I'll stay on.
Because we're giving the hosts our perspective, right? But we haven't gotten the host's perspective, right? So I'm just curious to see if there's anybody that's like, hey, you know what, Logan, you totally missed the mark on this. But if not, our job is done.
That actually gives me an idea for a future one, like a host and a cleaning partner, right? Where it's like here's my take, here's your take. Like that could be a really interesting back and forth conversation.
Yeah, we all have war stories, right? And the cleaners don't see your P&L, right? So we don't
Mm-hmm.
we don't
Well,
know.
and listen, I mean, y'all are from a cleaning perspective, you are doing incredible work in these properties. And there, to your point, Logan, there are a lot of conversations that are happening that you're not privy to that probably, I always say to when we have new hires that start, people are dealing with a lot of technology and there's frustration that happens across the board. That frustration, if you get that from somebody, it might not actually be because of anything that we've done. It just happens to be that we're the one that picked up the phone, right? And so I'm not by no means is this webinar this conversation meant to be, oh, cleaners have a way harder job than anyone else in the business. I think everybody has equally
Yep.
difficult challenges and work that they're doing on an everyday basis. So that's certainly not the case, but I think it's important that we hear everybody's sort of perspective and think about that as we're taking our operations and actions day by day.
I saw somebody ask earlier about how to get people to use Breezeway. There are so many folks who do not have their cleaning professionals using Breezeway on an every turn basis. And this is something that, I can just tell you it can be done. We've done over 500,000 services. Every single one of them have been done with a Breezeway work order, started and finished. It's the only way that we complete a service. Now, here's what I've found though, as I've toured around and talked to property managers. Most of the time it's not happening because your breezeway flow is so complicated. Your checklists are insane. I was talking to somebody that had on their cleaning breezeway templates, it had the cleaners, it said turn on all TVs and log people out of the streaming services. And like that was a requirement for the cleaning professional to do. Listen, your cleaners aren't doing that. And so therefore, if they're not doing that, then they're not going to fill out the breezeway. And now all of a sudden you've lost your entire flow. So going back to simplify that checklist A. And we can help with that if you need to, but simplify the checklist A. And that will allow for it to be like, this is what you need to do on every work order. Now we can add more to it on other work orders, etc. But start with truly trimming down what you're asking folks to do. And you might be able to achieve that aspect of everybody completing a work order on every service.
I love that.
Can I go ahead and address these two thoughts from, so Jamie, I know hosts think cleaners should not receive extra pay for a clean when it's warranted because the 10 cleans before that were not bad. Here's a different way to think about that. When you're hiring a cleaner, specifically an independent contractor, you're reserving a calendar slot. You're saying, hey, I'm reserving your time from 10 to 12, whatever. If you get the job and I'm paying you X amount of dollars for your time slot, right? If they get the job done beforehand, that's awesome. They worked fast, they got it done. But if the clean takes longer, you've now gone over your time, right? You've now gone over that time slot, right? And so the way that I think about it with our independent contractors, if they get the job done fast, amazing, you just made way more than your hourly rate is, right? But you have to make your at least minimum stated hourly rate. Does that make sense? So don't think about it in terms of this clean was easy, that clean was hard. Think about it in, okay, I have locked in this time slot, right? And if you get it done fast, great. But if it takes you longer, I have to pay you more because now it's over your desired hourly rate, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's helpful.
I like that.
And then Diana, how would you deal with a cleaner? Oh gosh, how would you deal with a cleaner that can't finish by check-in because it's spring break or another crazy holiday? I'm not exactly sure what the question is there because I think every clean should be done before check-in. But if you're saying that they can't get it done because they have 3 other cleans that day and they're trying to get 3 cleans done by check-in, you kind of have to, okay, am I okay with this, right? Am I okay with this compromise or should I find a different cleaner? My perspective is every clean should be done before check-in, right? If the cleaner's extending beyond check-in, they're probably over committed, right? And so you just kind of have to deal with that compromise. Are you okay with that? Or do you need to find another cleaner?
Or also help them. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Well, I was just going to say to the aspect of like, hey, something's going on here that's causing a delay. We require our teams to notify us at the 3 o'clock, before the 3 o'clock hour, if there's going to be anything delaying to the 4 o'clock hour, because 4 o'clock is check-in time. And so before that 3 o'clock hour hits, we either know everybody's on track for the timing to be completed, or we need to send resources, we need to send something. So it is required in order for them to avoid penalty, because they can avoid penalty. Sometimes things happen. Your car breaks down, something crazy is going on. You're like, man, I was planning on having this done before 4, but it's not going to happen. And so we require that to come in before the 3 o'clock hour so that we can make necessary moves to ensure guest readiness.
Yeah, and the only the other thing I was going to add on there, right, is that I fully agree with the idea of like everything being done by check-in time. But I also know that there are a lot of operators out there who say, hey, I know, because they ask their guests to share arrival information. And I know that Jonathan flying in and his flight does not get in until 6:30. And so I know that I have a little bit of extra time there and I have that flexibility. But I think if that's the scenario that you're operating under, you need to make sure that your cleaners know that so that they have organized their day accordingly. Because if you give them work thinking that they could potentially work until 6 p.m., right, and you don't tell them you need to go to property A first, then property B and C, which don't have that flexibility, are going to be the one that suffer. So a lot of this stuff can also be done if you're communicating it effectively and having those open lines of communication. This question, how would you schedule a checklist? See, look, we were going to wrap it up and now everybody's got thoughts. I like it. How would you go about scheduling a checklist B for every turnover clean for a specific property in Breezeway?
I answered this on the chat, but
Oh, you
basically
did? Okay.
we would put it as an inspection or a maintenance flow. And so there's ways to have additional work orders tied to every turnover. And so you can do that pretty simply within Breezeway. I put our email if you need
Sorry.
to.
Got it.
If you
Okay.
need further stuff. Yep.
Amazing. Okay, now I think we've gotten to everything.
Yeah.
All right, good call. I didn't realize we'd missed a couple of those. So thank goodness you guys were paying a little more attention. Well, listen, this has been eye-opening for me. I always learn something when I talk to the two of you. Logan, Jonathan, thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you for you know, telling it like it is, right? From the perspective of the work that you're in every day. Logan, if you want to add into the chat, feel free to throw your newsletter where somebody would go if they want to join. As Logan said earlier, he's got a incredible newsletter that is targeted towards cleaners. So if there is anybody out there that's on here that wants to get involved, that is the link. It just went into the chat. Feel free to grab that. And then I would just say I'm going to put this up here. Our next monthly Elevate is all about stop selling stays, start selling experiences. And we're going to talk to some really strong operators who are just doing amazing things when it comes to guest experience and sort of delivering above the norm. So there's a QR code on here if you want to join. We did usually these elevates are Thursdays, but because of going into that holiday weekend, wanted to go over. So this particular one will be on May 20th. But if you're interested in joining us next month, QR code is there. Jonathan, Logan, you guys are amazing rock stars. To everybody else who has joined and stuck with us for the whole time, thank you so much.